It's Christy here. I'm wearing my Get Up, Be Awesome shirt, which is super fun because that's just the mood that I'm in today. And it has been super chaotic getting everything moved. And now I'm getting ready to go to the coast and I'm trying to keep up on all of the stuff in my business, client work, and then also try and make my house perfect in 2 days. So that is just a great example of the unrealistic expectations that I like to put on myself sometimes, which actually kind of leads us into today's topic, which is this myth in sales that more is better. But before I get into that, I want to introduce myself. If you don't know me, my name is Christy Lawrence with Time to Profit, and I help small business owners who are struggling with sales eliminate the myths, I can't say that very well, that are keeping them stuck. So what I do here is break down the sales process, separate fact from fiction, so that when you go out and you do sales for your business, you can do it in a way that is effective and rewarding for both you and your prospects. And I think that's a really important part of the sales process. So today, specifically, what I'm talking about is this myth that more is better when it comes to sales, right? So more conversations, more sales calls, more proposals. Theoretically, that should equal more sales, that if you do more activity, you will generate more results. But the reality is that isn't actually the case. There are times when doing more will actually get in the way of doing the right things. And I'll give you an example. When I was in medical sales, a lot of times we would have company directives of you need to make 8 sales calls a day, 10 sales calls a day. And what would happen is then we would focus on activity. Okay, where can you go to generate that number of calls? Not necessarily thinking about maybe there's one prospect that isn't next to any other prospects that really has a high likelihood of buying. They're interested, they're engaged, they have the right patience. But I know if I go talk to them, I'm going to have to wait a couple of hours and spend a couple of hours getting there. So I'm not going to hit that activity goal, but actually that one conversation will likely generate more of an impact than 8 conversations that would be easy to have somewhere else. And that is one part of the whole more is better, that it really sets us up to focus on the wrong thing, that activity becomes more important than results. And then we get in a habit of generating a lot of activity without really thinking through strategically, is this the right activity that's going to create the results that I want? Is it the right thing for me and my clients? I'm trying to get my shoulders even. Kind of like a little dance move there. So anyways, back on topic. This is true with proposals too. People feel like if they're doing proposals, the sales process is moving forward, that the more proposals they do, the more deals they're going to close. But proposals take a lot of time. They take a lot of energy, both emotionally and just in terms of sitting down and doing the work. And so a lot of times, if you're doing with proposals for people who aren't ready to get to the proposal phase or have a very low likelihood to buy, you set yourself up for disappointment. And then when you're disappointed, it's hard to be excited about the conversations with the right people. And so the whole thing that I really want you to hear in this is that not every sales conversation, not every cold call is created equal, and not every prospect deserves a proposal. I want you always thinking about, where am I going to have the greatest impact? And impact is always more important than activity. Yes, there are times when we need to set some activity goals for ourselves, when we need to have some benchmarks that I know, for example, that generally for every 10 conversations I have, I generate 1 lead. So if I need to generate 3 leads, I can go out and make those conversations. There's nothing wrong with having some benchmarks around activity. The danger is that when the activity becomes the focus versus the result, and then you're just spinning your wheels and you're busy, and you're doing a lot, but what you're doing isn't creating sales. And that becomes very, very frustrating. And it's hard to stay engaged. It's hard to keep making those calls. And maybe there's nothing wrong with your message. Maybe there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, Maybe you're just not focusing the activity on the right people. So really think about sales is a mutual selection process. And what this means is that you need to be discerning when it's appropriate and valuable to spend your time with certain people. That dialing for dollars is emotionally taxing and often leads very little ROI if the prospects you're calling aren't qualified, interested, or appropriate potential clients. And so for me, right, the questions that I'm always thinking about is, do they have a desire to buy, right? Do they have a desire for what I offer? Do they have the ability to purchase it? And are they willing to make a change, right? Those are the things that I'm always thinking through in the back of my mind, and I'm looking for clues that help me understand whether that is true for each potential prospect. You want to set yourself up for success, and that means spending time and energy with the right people. Let's break this down into a real world example. So I have a client who has a list of over 1,000 people who at one time had reached out to get some information from them about doing business with them. And either they were past clients or they wanted a proposal at some point, but for whatever reason, they're not currently clients. This is awesome because this is a warm list. They already know the client's business on some level. They're familiar with the name. There was something that they were curious about initially, and at one point to have a conversation. So this is going to yield far greater returns than, say, making cold calls to everyone who's a member of the chamber. Now, I love the chamber, so don't hear me say that and say, oh, I'm not going to do anything with the chamber. I'm just giving you an example of really thinking about, are you spending time with the right people? So that being said, there are going to be times if you're newer in business where you don't have a huge warm list of people and you have to start somewhere. So in that case, you always want to be thinking about, where are the people who are most likely to buy? Where are the people who you can best serve? Where are they spending time? And how can you spend your time there? So if you're an insurance broker, for example, who works with business owners and you're brand new, the chamber is a great place to start. You don't have that warm list of people who are already familiar with your business. Even then, though, you want to go narrower than that. You want to really think strategically. Pay attention and start with one category. Say, for example, you have an interest in construction and real estate. So start with builders and own that category. Learn everything you can about that. Build those relationships. Get focused on a narrow group of prospects, and you will yield a far greater return for your effort than trying to just focus on activity and calling a lot of people in a broad category. Because when you focus on these broad categories, you're going to get more no's, you're going to get more discouraged, and you're going to spend up a bulk of your time doing activities that aren't yielding results. And here's the thing, sales is only one part of your business. And so if you are super busy making calls, generating activity, but you're not getting results, you're going to get behind on the other things you need to be doing in order to have a successful business. Serving the existing clients you have, getting out and doing marketing, right? Going out and building relationships, doing your accounting and your administration, thinking strategically through your business plan. So you want to make sure that you have the time and the creativity. Here's the other thing I really want you to hear here. Is your energy is a huge part of the sales process. The energy that you bring to any sales conversation is going to have a direct impact on how your prospects hear you. And if you are just dialing for dollars, if you're just, I'm making calls, I'm going out and I'm seeing people, and I'm focused on seeing as many people as I can, there's going to be an energy around that that's going to feel hurried, that's going to feel rushed. And sometimes just slowing down and being present with the person that you're in front of and focusing on that one particular prospect or client is going to have a tremendous impact on that one client, much more so than rushing through because you're trying to hit these goals in terms of activity that you've set for yourself. And you're going through and you're not being present and you're just kind of checking the box of, okay, I made my sales calls. And If you're not comfortable with sales, it can be easy to do that because you feel like, okay, I'm doing it, I'm making progress, but you're not really being present. And when you slow down, when you get a narrow focus, when you think about spending time with the people who are most likely to buy and spending less time making calls and maybe calling less people, but doing it with intentionality and doing it with focus and doing it with the right energy and presence, you are going to have a huge difference in the amount of yeses you get for the conversation. And we talk about, that's called conversion, right? And there's different steps of conversion. There's throughout the sales process, but that's something you always want to be conscious of. Like, what are my conversions here? Am I just being busy and I'm having a very low conversion? Or am I being intentional and my conversions are good because I'm spending time with the right people? So here's how I want you to really think about integrating this week in your business. I want you to think about this one of two ways. If you have been in business for 2, 3, 5, 10 years and you have a strong network and you have past clients, I want you to ask yourself this question. If you had to reach your growth goals and your sales goals and you could only interact with contacts that you already have, so people that are already in your network, how would you go about building your network? What would you do utilizing the work that you've already done and the relationships you've already built? And really, like, challenge yourself on that, because a lot of times we have people that maybe they dropped off in the process, or we started a conversation with and then life got busy and we missed the follow-up and we missed the opportunity. That's where you want to spend your time, because there was interest there was engagement. You don't have to start from scratch all the time. Now, if you are newer and you're still in the beginning phases of building a network and you're still don't have a very robust list of contacts, think about, what is the smallest group of people that you can serve? What's the most effective way to get in front of them? So is it builders, right? So what's the most effective way to get into builders? Is it through the chamber? Is it through the HBA, right? Where are the builders hanging out? Is it at the home and garden show, right? Where are they going to market their business? Think about that, because that is going to set you up for success. And then always, I want you to be asking yourself the question, how can you make it easier? How can you do less activity but achieve the same results? And just be curious about what you discover. I want to say this because it's very important. I am not saying that activity doesn't matter. You have to engage in activity if you want to win at sales. You can't just sit at home and wait for people to call you. You need to be proactive. You need to go have those conversations. It is absolutely essential to engage in the sales process and be proactive. And sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable, and sometimes you are going to be dialing for dollars and making cold calls. But when you're doing it, to really think about, how can I set myself up for success? How can I get in front of the people that are most likely to buy? Am I spending my time appropriately with the right people at the right time versus just focusing on that activity? That strategy, that intentionality, that focus is just as important as the activity you do with it. And the activity alone isn't going to get you where you want to go. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to really think about, how can you get narrow? How can you maybe streamline some of your activity to be more intentional? Maybe it's something where you have to have an uncomfortable conversation because you have this prospect, but you've been stuck on price. Pick up the phone. Have that conversation versus making 5 calls to people that you don't feel like you have to have as hard of a conversation with, right? Sometimes we let activity become a roadblock to doing the hard things. And so really focus on that this week. Focus on where's going to be your biggest bang for your buck, and spend time there. I want to hear from you. Who is your market? Tell me who you're serving. Tell me how you're serving them. Share in the comments below. And if you are ready to get more tools and strategies to help you multiply your sales, to stop shying away from the sales process and really discern fact from fiction when it comes to sales, head on over to mytimetoprofit.com. Again, that's mytimetoprofit.com. There is a free sales planning tool and checklist right on the homepage that will help you really think through that strategy that we're talking about, to think through the focus of where do you need to be spending your time to have the biggest bang for your buck. And I will see you again right here next week on Tuesday. Have a great rest of the week.